behind me is our 22 model Toyota Tundra. Now, this is not the hybrid version, but it has the same engine and gearbox that is in the hybrid version that has just been released in Australia. We are in the process of developing our stage 1 and stage 2 kit for this car. So far our stage 1 is complete, but we're finalising on the stage 2. And what's involved with the stage 2, as you can see behind me, we've got some twin snorkels from the boys at Fats. We've got our 4-inch exhaust that's on this car, as well as our airboxes that are in this, and allows us to get a fair bit more power out of this unit. I'm not going to talk about numbers just yet with this car, that will be in the next video. However, so far this car is proving to be a pretty good powerhouse. You might have noticed that we bought a GR Yaris about 2.5 years ago, and believe it or not, the reason for that car was to understand and develop this car. Although the engines are completely different, the structure is very, very similar. We no longer have the GR Yaris, but we understand the structure of how the ECU works and how to get the power out of it and how to make it reliable. So far we have our FFM airboxes that have been made up for us for this particular car. Now there's 2 airboxes in this car, not 1. So there was a lot of mucking around trying to make those airboxes work, as well as these 2 snorkels. Now in this application we need it because we've got 2 airboxes. They couple down into the guard and they fit extremely well into that airbox and allows us a fair bit more flow than what we currently have from factory. Cool thing is, we're about to release the multi-mapping with this system as well for our stage 1 and stage 2 package, which is going to be awesome. It's got a heap of functions and features. They are different because it is a petrol car, not a diesel, so there's a lot of differences that it have with that, but we're going to go through a full explanation around that. As you can see, we have our exhaust system here. It's a 4-inch stainless steel 304 stainless that has been done up by the boys at Fats. This exhaust system is a twin 3-inch system into a single 4. It's got 2 mufflers in it. It works really, really well for flow. So I'm really happy that it gives us a huge response difference from our stage 1 to our stage 2 package by doing this exhaust system. Comes with all the premium product hangers and brackets that the Fats always do with their exhaust, as well as high flow cats that are extremely good quality. Nothing these boys do is second. It is always the best, and that's one of the reasons that I love working with them. But so far this exhaust is working really well. Other than that, the boys at J-Max did a 3-inch suspension kit for this car, as well as Roscoe from All Sorts coupled us up with some 35-inch tyres that bolt onto this. And the great thing is in this car, there's heaps of clearance. You don't have to worry about scrubbing or any of those problems, which is fantastic. There's not many modifications in this car so far, but I do believe the hybrid version, as well as this version moving forward in Australia, is really going to give a good impact on touring. The great thing about the petrol is that the service cost of that petrol is a little bit lower than it is in a diesel, and I believe with the hybrid system that's in there, it's going to help with that consumption. The petrols are led to believe that they're always worse on fuel than the diesels, which is the truth. However, it's going to be interesting to see that hybrid shift when guys start touring with these particular cars. We'll go for a little bit of a drive and give an explanation on our thoughts around this particular platform. This car, like I said before, is a non-hybrid version. It's an American car that has been converted by a company in Australia, and they've converted that from left-hand to right-hand drive. I know the new hybrid ones are converted by Walkinshaw, and I have been in quite a few of those cars, and a lot of people might be aware of the American cars that get converted. I have seen this firsthand, and Walkinshaw do an amazing job of that conversion. The car's a lot more refined and really look like that factory style of conversion that is pretty hard to tell that it has been converted. The interesting thing about this car is that it's very similar to a 300 series in the shape of the chassis, the suspension, and the setup of the car overall. The great thing about the Tundra is that because it's got an extra long wheelbase in it, it really helps to be settled on the road, especially when towing and driving long distances. This thing on the highway eats up, kilometers, and you don't really have to put a lot of stress into driving. It sort of drives itself. It's really pleasant to drive. I know everyone will be asking this, and it's probably one of the biggest questions we'll be asked, and it's on a lot of people's minds, is how much fuel does the car really use? Well, at this stage when we're driving around town, we're probably using around 12 to 14 litres per 100k. It is a lot bigger than the 300 series, and you notice that once you go into a car park, because someone like me, I feel like an idiot when I'm parking because the car is so much wider and longer. I nearly have to do a 2-point turn every time I park this car, and it just goes to show how much bigger the car really is. It's doing around 12 to 14 litres per 100 kilometres around town. And once we started towing with it, the vans that we've been towing with it so far, we're showing around that 22 to 24 litres per 100k, but they are pretty heavily vans. And this car isn't standard by any means, so it's got 35s on it. And that all adds to that fuel consumption in general. So overall, I believe with the right setup, once we've finished that, it'll be interesting to see where we get those numbers to. But I do believe you should be able to, with the hybrid one, get them around that 17 to 20 litres per 100k towing, and you should hope for around that 11 to 12 litres per 100k when you're around town, and that's what I'm expecting. But time will tell once we put a bit more time into this car. The cool thing about the petrol is there's plenty of power to be had. It does lack once you start towing with it a little bit, and the consumption is a little bit high as well. So I hope to see with the improvements that we add with our packages is going to obviously give us more power, but also reduce that consumption as well. So that's something that we'll be heading towards. The interior layout of the car is pretty plain. It doesn't pop, there's not a hell of a lot going on. If you're into simple stuff, this car will probably be perfect for you guys. It's got Apple CarPlay and climate control, seat warmers, seat heaters, all that sort of stuff, which is, I think it's pretty standard with most cars nowadays. So I don't think it's leading the way as far as interior design and technology goes, that's for sure. But it's easy to navigate, easy to understand. I think anyone can jump in this car and within half an hour to 45 minutes of being in this car, you're pretty much going to understand what everything does and how it all works. I don't think there's a big problem with that. So big things for the Tundra to come this year. If you want any more information about our stage 1 or stage 2 packages, please get in contact with our guys at the front. Over the next couple of months, you'll see some more information about the power outputs and what they do, as well as the functionality around the multi-map. Something we have left out of today's video because there's another video to come that will explain all that to you guys. In the meantime, stay tuned.